はい。あ、マスクあります。はい、大丈夫です。あ、大丈夫です。はい。はい。はい。
Yeah. Where's the mic? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming today to the urgent press conference. My name is Khaldoun Azari. I'm moderator of this event and former president of FCCJ. Today our guest speaker has been or just finished hunger strike in front of the Kante in Tokyo in protest of the situation in Henoko Air Base that is being built to replace Futenma Air Base according to an agreement in the late 90s between the Japanese and American governments. The Okinawan people seems to still oppose this move, and they say that this construction is destroying the environment and it doesn't help in solving the problems of the Okinawan people in that prefecture. Our guest speaker, Mr. Jinshiro Motoyama, and now he is a graduate student in Hitsubashi University PhD program. Today's press conference, he will present some results of signature campaign, and also his group also they distributed some flyers containing a lot of information. Our press conference today, he will speak in English for about 20 minutes, and that will be followed in English, and that will be followed by question and answer in Japanese. Thank you again, and please start your presentation.
Thank you very much for coming, and I'm really honored to sit in the FCCJ's press conference. This is my second time to have a press conference. The first time was after the Prefectural Referendum of Henoko base construction. It was March 1st, 2019. That press conference is with the Deni Tamaki, Okinawa Prefectural Governor of Okinawa. I've never expected I came back here and doing my hunger strike. It's really tough, but I hope the Japanese government, Kishida administration, accept my requests, 3 requests, and then celebrate together the 50th anniversary of Okinawa, Division of Okinawa. Now I will read my statements in English, then after that I will have a Q&A in Japanese, and translator is Mary Joyce-san. よろしくお願いします。Okay, and my statement. Hungry for reversion. Hunger strike for stopping the construction of the new U.S. military base in Henoko. May 15th, 2022 marks the 50th anniversary of the reversion of Okinawa from the U.S. to Japan. What has changed in Okinawa in the past 50 years? The most notable aspect of the change would be the development of public infrastructure, such as airports, roads, and seaports, and it is not deniable that Okinawa has become materially affluent since the land was returned to Japanese sovereignty as the Okinawa Prefecture. However, many issues remain unresolved. Its heavy reliance on the service industries has created systematic pay gaps and income inequality between those who live in Okinawa and the average of those who live in the rest of Japan. There is also the pressing need for tackling the uncontrolled land development and environmental destruction. The effectiveness of the various projects which have been promoted by the Act on Special Measures for the Promotion and Development of Okinawa, for improving the quality of lives of the people of Okinawa and their contribution to the local community need to be evaluated. The promotion and economic policies and social welfare and health services also need to be re-examined for future prosperity and according to the SDGs, the social development goals. The biggest issue which has remained since the reversion of Okinawa to Japan and even since the end of World War II is the presence of U.S. military bases, which have been unevenly constructed in Okinawa. Who is the host of 70.3% of the U.S. military bases in Japan? The number of incidents and crimes and the cases of noise and environmental pollution have been soaring as a result of the military presence. The efforts of any corrective measures have been prevented by the Japan-U.S. status of force agreement and the series of its practical agreement. 3 years have also passed since the Okinawa Prefectural Referendum, which quarreled about the landfill work for the new base in Henoko in February 2019. The central government failed to accept the poll results, which revealed that 72% of the casted ballots opposed the construction. It is no exaggeration to say that the military base has been a serious problem in the past 5 decades. How much longer will the people of Okinawa have to bear this situation? Eisaku Sato, the then Prime Minister who pushed for the reversion of Okinawa to Japan, stated when he landed at Naha Air Base in the summer of 1965, during the 20 years of the separation of Okinawa from the rest of Japan, we, the people of Japan, never forget about the 900,000 people who live in Okinawa at that time, not even for a moment. I'm well aware that the post-war period of Japan will not terminate until Okinawa is returned to Japan. I believe that this is the feeling shared by all Japanese citizens. Have the issues surrounding the military bases in Okinawa been forgotten by the people of Japan? Unless the issue of the military bases in Okinawa is resolved, the reversion and even the post-war period will not be truly over for the people of Okinawa. As a person from Okinawa, I demand an immediate termination of the construction of new military bases in Henoko and a substantial reduction of the number of U.S. military bases in Okinawa through discussion with governments of U.S., Japan, and the Prefectural Government of Japan. Jinshiro Motoyama, thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. We'd like to open the floor to questions and answer. When you have a question, please raise your hand. And
Should we do
proceed
this later or now, the petition?
as you wish.
Okay.
We will have some ceremony now, please.
Okay. I'm now collecting signatures through the change.org, and now I show that at the present time how much signatures are being collected.
Would you like to show?
Okay.
Sign-
I write down first, and then okay.
It's when you write and then they
Okay.
Hold it for you.
I can help you with this one.
でも
で
よろしいですか？
あでこれで書くと。Okay.
Yeah, sorry, just can you show like this?
Show this,
Yeah,
okay.
and then turn a little bit.
Okay.
Can you turn to me?
Okay.
Difficult to write.
Okay. This is a signature at the present time has been collected, and then my request is the immediate termination of the Henoko or the construction of a new base in Henoko, and another two is the negotiation with Japan, U.S. and Japan, and the prefectural government of Okinawa, and then the substantial reduction is my request to the Japanese government. Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. He will answer in, Motoyama-san will answer in Japanese, so we have here today our FCCG outstanding interpreter.
では質疑応答に入りますので、ご質問ある方は挙手をお願いします。前の
Would
方に
like
マイ
to
ク
take
がござい
first
ます。
question?
ご質問、日本語でも英語でも大丈夫です。
All right, let me ask until they heat up. What is the significance of this number, please?
Okay. こんなに署名が集まるとは思ってなかったです。もちろん私自身がハンガーストライキを始めてから、集めた署名で、ハンガーストライキを始めたのは、5月の9日月曜日の10時からになります。したがって今日が13日ですので、9、10、11、12、13で5日目、ちょうど5日間、ということになると思うんですけれども、それで、24,250筆の署名が今集まっているということに驚いて、おります。で、またそうですね、この署名が集まいいですよ。一度、はい。
So first of all, I had not anticipated or expected that so many signatures would be raised personally. This was, of course, collected since I began my hunger strike, which began at 10 a.m. on Monday, May the 9th. So we're just entering the 5th day since the hunger strike was launched, and therefore since this petition was launched as well, given that today is May the 13th. So I was very surprised to have this more than 24,000 signatures in just this short period of time.
でもこの署名がなぜ集まっているのかというところを、自分なりの理解でお話をすると、この復帰50年5月15日あさって迎えるわけですけれども、やはりこのまま復帰というものを、日を迎えていいのか。で、日本政府はおそらくお祝い、祝典のそのムードというものを醸成したい、醸成しているというふうに思っていると思うんですけれども、このままこの辺野古の新基地建設をはじめ、やはり沖縄の基地問題が全くと言っていいほど解決していない、また 昨今のそのウクライナのロシアによる侵略を受けて、安全保障大事だと、もっと軍備を強化せよというような中で、沖縄だけじゃなくて、琉球列島、宮古島や石垣島、与那国島だとかに、自衛隊の配備がなされている。沖縄が再び沖縄戦だとかそういった戦場になりかねないような状況にあると私自身は思っておりまして、そういう辺野古の新基地建設をはじめ、この基地問題が全くと言っていいほど解決していない、また軍備の拡張で、自衛隊の基地も建設されていて、台湾有事だとか、あるいは偶発的な衝突というのが想定されている中で、復帰50年というのをお祝いしていいのだろうか、そういう思いで私自身もハンガーストライキをやっています。で、その思いに共感してくださった方が署名をいただいていると思っています。で、これだけの数が集まっていることを大変嬉しく思っていますし、もっともっと集めて、岸田首相をはじめ日本政府に届けたいと思っています。
And so as to this, of course, the reason that personally I believe that such a large number of signatures were gathered, my understanding is, of course, the day after tomorrow, on May 15th, we will be meeting the anniversary, the 50th year of the reversion of Okinawa to Japan. But I think that this is really questioning whether it is okay to approach this reversion day just with the situation as it is now. The Japanese government is today wanting to meet this day in a kind of celebratory mood, having the ceremony and so on. However, when we look at the situation of the new base construction in Henoko, and the fact that the overall military base situation in Okinawa could be said to be completely unresolved at this moment. We see also the situation of the recent Russian invasion of Ukraine, which is leading to people talking about the more importance of security, strengthening of militarization, the military, and so on as well. This is something not only for Okinawa, but for the entire Ryukyu archipelago, including also, of course, Miyako, Ishigaki, Yonaguni, and the construction of Japanese self-defense force bases and strengthening of them there as well. I think that this shows that I personally believe there is a real risk that Okinawa, which suffered the Battle of Okinawa, could once again be a site for such war again, a site of such battlefield. So when we have this complete situation where there is no resolution at all of the overall base issue in Okinawa, and also the ongoing problem of the new construction in Henoko, together with the military expansion, including the SDF discussion of, for example, a potential Taiwan contingency, some kind of accidental tensions or incursion and so on happening in the area, can we really approach this day with just a mood of celebration? This is the reason for my hunger strike, and I think the fact that so many people have signed this position is showing people's understanding or empathy and support for this message, this stance as well. So I'm very glad that so many people have signed the petition, and I hope that we can continue to gather even more signatures to the petition in support and present this to Prime Minister Kishida and the Japanese government.
Thank you. Next question. All right, I have a question online from Nozomi Hashi, Newsweek Japan. The question is, some people say there's no point in doing this hunger strike. How do you reply to this criticism?
ニューズウィークジャパンの大橋記者からの質問です。オンラインで届いている質問です。このハンガーストライクをやる意味がないというふうに批判する人々はいると思うんですけれども、そのような批判にはどういうふうに答えますでしょうか。
はい、ご質問ありがとうございます。この、自分自身のツイッターでこのハンガーストライキをやっていること、また昨日は、外務省前と防衛省前で行ったんですけれども、そういった場所どこでやっているかということを発信しています。
So personally, I have, for example, been writing on my Twitter about the fact that I am conducting this hunger strike, or the other day, I also moved and held the hunger strike in front of the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Defense. So on Twitter, I posted a tweet to announce the location of where I was conducting the hunger strike.
そのような私のハンガーストライキのツイートに対して、 リプライだとかメンションっていう、機能を使ってですね、このハンガーストライキは意味がないということだとか、誹謗中傷が、寄せられていると思っています。
And since making such tweets talking about the hunger strike, Twitter users using the reply or mention functions have been saying, there is no point for doing this, or also making tweets which are defamatory as well.
私としては、なぜこの復帰50年に際してハンガーストライキをやらざるを得ない状況があるのかということを一番に考えてほしいと思います。
So for me personally, I most want them to consider what is the situation which has made me have to do this hunger strike at this timing of the 50th anniversary of the reversion of Okinawa.
で確かにこの辺野古の新基地建設の即時断念だとか、普天間基地の数年以内の運用停止、それから日米地位協定の運用にかかるすべての日米合意の公開で、それらを沖縄県を含む民主的な手続きを経て見直すというこの3つの要求、日本政府が、私のハンガーストライキを受けて、分かりましたということで、すぐに動くということはもちろん期待はしてますけれども、これまで、県民投票だとか、あるいはさまざまな抗議活動を行う中でも叶わなかった、そういう要求が、今回のハンガーストライキで、変わっていくというのも、難しいのかもしれないなというふうな自覚もしています。
And certainly looking at the three demands which I am putting forward to the Japanese government as part of this hunger strike, the termination of the new base construction in Henoko, the reduction of the overall bases, including the stopping of operations within the next several years at Futenma, and also making transparent and public information about or between the US-Japan agreements, including SOFA, and having more democratic proceedings to review these agreements as well. These three demands, of course, while I do hope that the Japanese government will take them on board, say, okay, we understand, and take action towards that, given our experience until now, for example, in the Okinawa Prefectural Referendum and also in other protest actions as well, the fact that these demands have not been realized until now, I do, of course, have an awareness that immediately having or expecting that kind of change from the Japanese government would be difficult.
で、私自身この要求をもちろん今すぐに受け入れてほしい、日本政府が決断さえすればすぐにでもできるこの要求を岸田政権が受け入れることを望んでいます。しかしながらそういう5月15日という短期的な目標に加えて、やはりこれまで沖縄の人たちが基本的人権が尊重されるような社会、日本国憲法の下でその理念、平和主義、基本的人権や民主主義、そういったものがしっかりと尊重される、地方自治がしっかりと大事にされるような政治あるいは社会を望んできたというこれまでので、それに向けてさまざまな声を上げてきたというこれまでの沖縄の歴史を踏まえて、この次の50年だとか、あるいはこの先の沖縄の人たち、日本の人たち、あるいは世界中の人たちにどういうメッセージをこのタイミングで発すべきかというその長期的なことも考えています。
And so personally, of course, I would hope or wish that the Japanese government would accept these demands right away. These are all issues where if the Japanese government were to decide, they could be implemented immediately as well. Therefore, I do hope that the Kishida administration does accept these demands. However, of course, there is the short-term goal of May the 15th, the anniversary of reversion. However, in addition to that as well, looking at, as the Okinawan people have hoped for a society where there is respect for fundamental human rights based on the Japanese Constitution and its principles of pacifism, of human rights, and of democracy as well. Looking at how we can have politics and a society in which these are respected and valued, as well as local autonomy as well. So we have, of course, been continuing to hope for this until now as well, raising voices using various methods for this, and also based on the history of Okinawa as well, the history of people working towards this, taking action towards this as well. Therefore, not only this short-term goal as well, but looking toward the next 50 years to come as well, considering what kind of message I want to be, or we should be sending at this timing to the people of Japan and indeed the people of the world. So as well as this short-term goal, there is also this long-term perspective in what I am doing at the moment.
Thank you. なので、これは、やっても意味がないというのは、ということは、やはり、これからの先の歴史、あるいはそれにどれぐらいの沖縄の人だけでなくて、日本の人たちが応えるかにかかっていると思いますので、私に対してそういうことをやっても無駄だということを向けるのではなくて、やはりもうそれに応える方々がどれだけいるかと問題だと思っていますので、ぜひ多くの方に、メディアの方には伝えていただきたいと思いますし、5月15日に向けてたくさんの番組だとか新聞報道もなされると思うので、この50年、沖縄がどう発展したかということだけではなくて、じゃあ日本の人々がこの50年果たして沖縄とどう向き合ってきたのかということを考える機会になってほしいなとも思っています。
And so to those people who say to me that there is no point in the actions that I am taking, I would like to question and say that it is also about from now as well, and also based upon this history that has come to now as well. And really the question here is how the people of Japan will be responding to this as well, how they will be acting from now. So to the people who tell me that what I am doing is a waste, I would like to respond in actually, or how they respond is indeed the most important question there as well. To that end, I hope that the media will convey this information to many people. Of course, as we are approaching the May 5th anniversary, there will be many programs, newspaper reporting, and so on the issue of reversion. I hope that these reporting will be looking at not only how Okinawa has developed in the past 50 years, but looking at how Japan as a state and the people have been dealing with Okinawa during this period as well. And I hope that we can take this as an opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Any more questions?
会場からご質問ありましたら。
TBS, please.
TBS の報道特集の金平ですが、お祝いは50周年でしたい気持ちはないというのはよく分かりましたけど、2つ質問があります。はい、ロシアのウクライナ侵攻で、日本国内には中国や北朝鮮を仮想敵として沖縄および南西諸島の基地機能の強化を進めようという動きがあって、日本の世論はですね、それが仕方がないことだ、やむを得ないことだというような、支持するような動きというのが、一時的かもしれませんが見られますが、これについては、本山さんが今、ハンガーストライキをやっている、辺野古の基地建設、新基地建設断念とは、逆向きの動きですよね。このことについてどう思われるかというのが一つです。もう一つは、本山さんは現在30歳ですよね。沖縄の若い世代のリーダー 希望だというふうに私は思ってるんですが、Z 世代って言われてる、沖縄の若い人たちの意識をですね、本山さんからご覧になって、基地問題とか、本山さんが訴えていることに対して、その若い世代の反応っていうのはどうなのかっていうのを、率直なところをお伺いしたいんですが、以上です。
My name is Kanehira of TBS. I very much understand the sentiment that you've expressed, that not feeling the celebration in regards to the 50th anniversary. I have two questions. The first, looking at or following the Russian invasion of Ukraine domestically in Japan, we are seeing more public opinion being increased in regards to positioning China or the DPRK as the enemy and increasing the base functions in Okinawa and the Nansei Islands as well. And within much of public opinion, there seems to be a trend to seeing this as something which cannot be helped, which is sort of necessary given the situation. This is, of course, something which goes completely in the opposite direction of what you are appealing about in the hunger strike, such as the base construction in Henoko and so on. So I would like to ask your comment on how you feel on these issues. And the second question, I understand that you are 30 years old now, and as a leader of the younger generation in Okinawa, who indeed I see very much as a hope. So looking at the so-called Z generation, what is your frank opinion or perspective on the awareness or the opinions of Okinawan youth on issues related to the bases and the other issues around which you are appealing?
Thank you. まずこの、ロシアによるそのウクライナの侵略については、一日も早くこの和平交渉、平和がウクライナの人たちに訪れることを望んでいます。で、ロシアによるこの侵略っていうのをプーチン大統領やロシア政府が一日も早くやめるという決断をするということを望んでいます。でもそのような状況を受けて、日本政府の中枢あるいはそれに近い政治家の方から、沖縄のこの軍事基地をもっと強化すべきではないかと、台湾有事だとか、あるいは北朝鮮を、中国ですね、仮想敵にしたこの有事に対応すべきじゃないかということが叫ばれていると思います。で、それに対して、多くの人たち、日本に住んでいる、世論調査とかですね、比較的多くの過半数の人たちは、やむを得ないのではないかということを感じているというふうに私自身もまず認識をしています。
So first of all, in regards to the question of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, first of all, I hope that as soon as possible there can be successful peace negotiations and that peace will be restored for the people of Ukraine as soon as possible. That President Putin will also make the decision to stop indeed this military action and invasion there as well. Within such a situation, we are indeed seeing at the moment within the Japanese government, certain people at the center or politicians close to that, discussing the need for strengthening of the military bases in Okinawa, also talking about a potential Taiwan contingency or these perceptions of the DPRK in China as enemies, how to respond to such a situation. I also recognize the fact that in recent public opinion polls of people in Japan, there are indeed large numbers or indeed majority who are saying that such a sort of increase is something unavoidable that cannot be helped in these circumstances.
そういった状況を受けて、今ある状況下にあるわけですけれども、それに対してはやはりそれはつまり、一体誰が犠牲になるんでしょうかと、もしそのような事態が起きてしまったときにどこが狙われるのか、でどこに住んでいる人たちがどれぐらい犠牲になるのかということをものすごく疑問に思います。で、おそらく沖縄や沖縄島だけではなくて、宮古島や石垣島、与那国島、あるいは奄美だとか、馬毛島だとこういった南西諸島、琉球列島に住んでいる人たちが偶発的な衝突によるその局所的なその戦争っていうのの犠牲者になるということが想定されているのではないかなというふうに思っています。
And so within such a context and in response to that, if such a situation were to happen, who would indeed be sacrificed then? What locations would be targeted? People people who are impacted or suffering as a result of this? Where are these people living? I think this is something that we need to question. And this comes, of course, not only to Okinawa, the main island, but also Miyako, Ishigaki, Yonaguni, also the Amami Islands, including Mageshima, and so on as well, where there is this defense force there as well. When we consider the potential risk of the impacts or sacrifice of people, even if there is some kind of an accidental collision occurring as well, it is the people of these places who will indeed suffer.
沖縄戦の、一つの教訓にやはり軍隊は、住民を守らないというものがあります。で私自身の祖父母も、沖縄戦、あるいは、アジア太平洋戦争の体験者ですけれども、沖縄戦を二度と繰り返してはいけないということをずっと、教わってきました。で今、辺野古の新基地建設だけではなくて、そういう自衛隊配備というのが、沖縄の島々、琉球列島になされている中で、もう一度、沖縄戦が起きてしまうのではないか、また、その沖縄戦が起きるような、起きかねないような事態を想定して、日本政府や、特に防衛省が、軍事作戦計画をアメリカと一緒に作っているのではないか。そのことに対しては、そこの住民、住んでる私の家族だとか、あるいは友達だとか、親戚だとか、そういう想定しているのか、でそのために基地を置くということをやっているのかということをにものすごく怖い恐怖心を抱いています。
One of the lessons of the Battle of Okinawa is the fact that the military cannot protect citizens. My own grandparents experienced the Battle of Okinawa in the Asia-Pacific War, and I was always taught that this is something which must never be allowed to be repeated as well. When we look, of course, not only the new base construction at Henoko, but also the presence of the SDF and their increased presence in the Ryukyu archipelago overall as well. This is something which, of course, means that there is this risk of potentially another Battle of Okinawa occurring in the future. Also, the fact that military operation plans are being created with the anticipation of such a potential discussions going on, but being really made with the people who are living in these places, with them being considered as well. This is, of course, my family, my friends, my relatives, their lives. Are these kinds of situations of a potential contingency and the plans for these being set forward, knowing about the lives of these people and with consideration of them actually in mind? This is something in regards to which I have a huge sense of fear.
なので、そしてこの台湾有事だとか軍事強化、安全保障をもっと軍事的に強化しないといけないという議論については、もっとその具体的にやはり沖縄の人たちが犠牲になるということを、どれぐらい想定しているのか。でもし想定しているのであれば、それもしっかり説明した上で、あるいは、しっかり公表して、沖縄の人たちともその話をやる姿勢をとって、しっかりその実質的な、議論や対話というものを経た上で、この計画を、進めて、仮に進めていくにしても、そういう、沖縄の人たちの生活だとかを踏まえて、多議論をすべきなのではないかなというふうに思っています。
So when we consider these debates about a potential Taiwan contingency, about the strengthening of the military, enhancing of security, and so on, I think that I would hope that this can be done, or this kind of debate can be done with more concrete consideration of, well, indeed, is it the people of Okinawa who would then be sacrificed in such a situation? How much they are actually being considered when these plans are being created? And even if they are, then, or if that is the case, there should be a thorough explanation with information disclosed to the people in regards to this. There should be a discussion based upon this with the people of Okinawa as well, and this kind of stance of dialogue and transparency should be shown if there is plans are indeed to be progressed as well. I think that needs to be done with full consideration of indeed the Okinawan people and their lives.
2点目の質問に答えたいと思います。沖縄の若い人たちが、このハンガーストライキだとか、辺野古の基地建設だとかどういうふうに思っているのかというところで、なかなか自分自身も、それを測るのが、難しいなとは思っています。で、どれぐらいの沖縄の、若い、人たち、10代の後半だとか、20代あるいは30代の前半だとかの人たちがこのハンガーストライキのことを知っているのかというのは何とも言い難いですけれども、少なくとも自分の周りにいるこれまで一緒に県民投票に取り組んできた人たちだとか、あるいは沖縄でイベントごとをやってきた人たちだと、一緒にイベントごとをやってきた人たちだとか、それから自分の同級生だとかですね、そういった人たちからは新聞だとかテレビを見たよというで本当に、頑張ってねというようなことが声が寄せられています。なので多少その、同世代の人たちにも伝わっているのではないかなというふうに思います。ただこれだけいいですよ。ここで。
そうですね。And for the second question as to how the young people of Okinawa are seeing or perceiving the hunger strike or the base construction at Henoko and so on, this is something which for me as well, it is also somewhat difficult to measure and have a precise understanding there as well as to how many young people in their late teens, their 20s, their early 30s who are aware of the hunger strike. It's somewhat difficult to say. But at the very least, the people who I have worked together, for example, in the Henoko Okinawa Prefectural Referendum, or who have worked together to organize various events in Okinawa, or my own classmates as well. I have received many messages from people who saw about the hunger strike in the newspaper or television and contacted me to say, give their best wishes and so on. So I think that it could be said that to a certain extent, the hunger strike is indeed reaching people of the same generation.
でしかしながらその沖縄が今この日本政府にどれだけ声を上げてもないがしろにされているという現状があって、もうこの日本政府に対していくらこの基地問題の解決、辺野古の新基地建設をせめてやめてほしいという声も届かないという状況で、やっぱ何を言ってももう無駄なのではないかなというふうに諦めざるを得ないような状況に追い込まれていると思ってというふうにやっぱり感じてしまう、若い人たち、同世代の人たちはもう一定数いるのではないかなというふうには思っています。
However, at the same time, looking at the current situation where no matter how much people of Okinawa continue to raise their voices, no matter what kind of ways they used to do this, that this is really being completely ignored by the Japanese government. No matter, for example, how calling for resolution of the base issue or for, at the very least, the cessation of new construction, no matter how much these calls are being made to the Japanese government, the fact that the situation is not changing means that I think it has led to a certain number of young people of the same generation as me who feel that they have to, give up. They feel a sense of, not, or a feel of needing to give up because they are not seeing change, not seeing any response in regards to this.
Thank you. Questions? Yes?
すみません、TBS ラジオの澤田と申します。TBS が続いてすみません。私自身、学生時代、沖縄に、行きました。で、外から沖縄に来て、沖縄の基地の現状が、 自分が育った環境と大きく異なることに気づいて、衝撃を受けたんですけども、本山さんはずっと基地のある沖縄で育って、それで今、本土に来ているという状況です。その本山さんにとって、その解決という文言の中にあったと思うんですけども、解決とは何を指すのかということが1点です。で、もう1点が、戦後、自民党が多くの期間、政権を担ってきて、総理は変わっても政権自体は変わらないと。で、民主党になったり、一部、日本新党になった時とかもあったとは思うんですけども、それでもなかなか変わらなかった現状についてですね、何が一番問題だったかと思っておられるのか、例えばもうそれは政治っていうふうな一括りで済ませられないとも思うので、例えば本土の人の意識でもいいですし、そこどういったところに問題の本質があるとお考えなのかという、その2点を伺わせてください。
My name is Sawada of TBS Radio. I'm sorry for TBS continuing two questions in a row. I personally spent my student period in Okinawa. So as someone coming from outside, going to Okinawa, I was quite shocked to see, of course, the difference between the situation in Okinawa and where I was raised. However, Mr. Motoyama, of course, you are in a different situation, having been raised in Okinawa and now living in mainland Japan as well. Therefore, I would like to ask you, when you refer to potential resolution in quotation marks, what does that resolution mean to you? What kind of format of resolution for the base issue could you envision? And the second question, in Japan, the post-war period, for the majority of the time, the LDP has been in government in Japan. While there have been changes of prime minister, of course, the government, the ruling party has continued to remain the same, except for short periods of the DPJ and so on as well. And therefore, we have not seen significant change in regards to this issue. I would like to ask what you see as the biggest problem in regards to that. Of course, this probably cannot be reduced just to the one word of politics, whether it could be the awareness of mainland Japanese people, for example, or what do you see as the biggest reason or problem that we haven't seen a change during this period?
はい、時間が限られているので短く答えたいと思います。でこの、沖縄が抱えている、基地問題、もちろんそれは日本全体で、考えるべき問題です。でこれを解決していくために、私自身も、県民投票に取り組んだり、あるいは県民投票が終わってから、100回ほどですね、全国各地、この3年間でですね、回って、そこに住んでいる方々に話をして、具体的に行動を起こしてほしいという、行動提起もですね、してきました。
As we have limited time, I will keep my response brief. But in regards to the Okinawa, or the base issue, which is held by Okinawa, of course, this is something which needs to be considered from the perspective of the whole of Japan. In order to resolve this issue, I personally have been taking actions, for example, the Prefectural Referendum. Also, since after the referendum, traveling to different parts throughout Japan in the 3 years since to more than 100 different places to have conversations, dialogue with local residents, and make suggestions and requests for taking concrete action toward resolution also.
同様のことは今玉城デニー知事が行っている、日本全国のそのトークキャラバンというプロジェクトでも行われていることです。でしかしながら、日本に住んでいる人たちに、この辺野古の基地問題、沖縄の基地問題を伝えて、一緒に考えてほしい、自分事として、思ってほしいということを訴え続けているんですけども、なかなか状況がそうですね、改善が目に見える形ではなされていない現状にあると思っています。
And Governor Deni Tamaki of Okinawa is also carrying out a similar initiative with the Talk Caravan project, traveling throughout Japan to have dialogue on these issues as well. However, while there are these different actions which are continuing to appeal to people living in Japan to think of the issues of the base construction at Henoko and the broader base issue as their own issue as well, to take it on personally as well and appeal about this, unfortunately, we are not seeing improvement of the situation in a tangible way.
これについてはもう自分としては現在ですね、制度的にどうにかやっぱしていかざるを得ない状況になってきているのかなと思います。具体的には やはり人種差別の問題のことでよく用いられる、制度だと思いますけれども、アファーマティブアクションのような、その積極的にこの沖縄に基地が集中しているという状況を、法律や制度でもっと減らしていく、という仕組みですね、その法律や制度っていうのが必要なのではないかと。例えばこの国会の中で、沖縄のその米軍基地削減法のようなものを制定して、年に何%かは返還するように日本政府はアメリカと交渉するというような、例えば条文を入れて、アメリカと交渉を行っていく。で、日米地位協定の4条に、この、米軍基地、アメリカが使わなくなった米軍基地は返還するということを目的にすると謳っているので、そういった法律を制定することは不可能ではないと思っています。その日米地位協定4条の、条文にもかなう、ような法律になると思うので、そういう、もう制度的にやはりこの構造的な差別を解決していかざるを得ないような状況になってしまっているのではないかなと最近ですね考えるようになっています。
And as to what I think is, well, what I'm currently or recently thinking is needed for this, I think that there really needs to be systematic measures in order to make a resolution and change of this issue. Concretely, for example, something which is often spoken of in regards to the racism issue is affirmative action, looking at what kind of legislative actions or systematic measures could be put in place to reduce the concentration of the bases on Okinawa, and what kind of legal mechanisms could be implemented to do this. For example, there could be a law enacted within the Diet for the reduction of the US bases in Okinawa. Within that, there could be, for example, a clause saying each year a certain percentage of the bases will be returned. The Japanese government could have negotiations with the US in regards to a kind of systematic and step-by-step way for such a clause to be included. And actually within Article 4 of the Status of Forces Agreement between the US and Japan, there is a clause which talks about the fact that bases which are no longer used by the US military are to be returned to Japan. Therefore, it would be possible to create and enact this kind of legislation within the Japanese Diet, matching with this Article 4 of the SOFA as well. So recently, I am starting to think that in order to address and resolve this issue of systemic discrimination, there needs to be such kind of systemic mechanisms and ways to change this.
Thank you. I have a question online from Chin Kin Han, a Chinese media called The Paper. The question is, has Mr. Motoyama tried to communicate directly with the Japanese government officials, and did you get any feedback or response?
中国のチェン・チンカンの記者からの質問なんですけれども、本山さんも直接日本政府とのコミュニケーションなどということはやろうとしているのか、もしやっているのであれば何かフィードバック反応などというものはありましたでしょうか。
はい。今現在その日本政府やあるいは与党である自民党の関係者の方とやり取りをしているということではわけではありません。なのでそのフィードバックっていうのも特に得られていません。ただ昨日ですね、国土交通省の前でハンガーストライキを行ってたり、あるいは昨日外務省の前で、おととい国土交通省の前で行ったんですけれども、一部、もちろんお名前は分かりませんけれども、職員の方で来られて、話をされるというような方もいらっしゃいました。
I am not in any current direct communication with Japanese government officials or within the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. Therefore, there is no direct feedback from them. But in recent days, yesterday in front of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the day before in front of the Ministry of Transportation, when I was carrying out the hunger strike, there were certain individuals who were working within those ministries who did come out to speak with me. I don't know their names and positions and so on, but there was this dialogue occurring.
Kind of casual, not of formal. Yeah. Please.
毎日新聞の佐野です。今日はすみません、ありがとうございます。すみません、一点お伺いしたいのは、本山さんはかつて沖縄でもハンストやられましたが、今回東京で実際都内の首相官邸前などでやられてみて、もう少し具体的に感じたこと、例えばこれだけ署名、割とネットが多く集まったと思うんですけど、さっきネットからのいろいろ中傷あったっていう話はお伺いしましたが、具体的にその現場であった、見たもの、自分の中での例えば予想と違うところだとか、温かみだったりとか、あるいは無関心さをまた感じたのかとか、もう少しそのあたりを教えていただけますか。
From Mainichi, I have one question. In the past, you have conducted a hunger strike in Okinawa, but this time you're, of course, conducting this in Tokyo in front of the government buildings. I'd like to ask a little bit concretely about, on the spot there, what kind of things, you felt, you observed, if there was anything that was different to what you expected, if there has been any examples of particular warmth, indifference. You mentioned about, of course, the responses to the petition, both support and also defamation online. Perhaps if you can share a little bit more about your personal impressions.
そうですね、今、首相官邸前だとか、あるいは、自民党本部前や公明党本部前、国土交通省前や防衛省前、外務省前でこれまでですね、4日間行ってきて、もちろん素通りをする私の方も見ずに通り過ぎる方もいらっしゃって、もちろん伝わってないのかなというふうにも思いますし、またそれぞれのねお仕事だとか生活もあると思いますので、そういった反応があるのも当然だということは思っています。でしかしながら今回ハンガーストライキを行っていて、この今日5日目で4日間でですね、大体250人ぐらいの方、1日平均して60だとか70人ぐらいの方がハンガーストライキをやっている現場に訪れてくださっています。で、激励の声をかけてくれたり、署名をしているというような状況です。で沖縄と比較すると、人口規模で比較すると少ないかなというふうにも思いますけれども、しかしながら、わざわざ本当に遠方は、愛知県だとか新幹線とかで来てくださる方もいましたし、千葉だとかですね、近隣の県からも来てくださる方もいて、沖縄のことをですねそれぞれの場所で、思っているあるいは何かアクションを起こそうとしている人たちが、いらっしゃっているのは嬉しく思っています。
So in these past 4 days, I've been conducting the hunger strike in front of the Prime Minister's office, in front of the headquarters of the LDP in Kometo, also in front of the Ministries of Transportation, of Defense and Foreign Affairs as well. Of course, there are many people who just, walk past without even glancing at me, without making any kind of reaction. But this is perhaps something to be or a natural response, considering, of course, they have their own, work, their own lives, and so on as well. So it's not something necessarily surprising. However, within the period of 4 days of this hunger strike, there have been around 250 people who have come each day, or with an average each day of about 60 to 70 people coming to where I am carrying out the hunger strike to share their encouragement, sign the petition, and so on as well. I think the main difference with Okinawa is, of course, if we consider from the scale of the population, it is perhaps fewer people. But there are people coming from quite far away, even from Aichi Prefecture, for example, coming on the Shinkansen in order to come and support, or closer coming from Chiba Prefecture and so on as well, and sharing with me that in their own locations, in their own community, they are thinking about Okinawa, taking action for Okinawa and so on as well. And this is something which I am, of course, very glad about.
Thank you. I think we can have last question, please.
いつもありがとうございます。ラジオフランス西村ですけれども、先ほど自民党と政府直接、やり取りがないということで、無視されているということでしょうか。もしそうであればどう分析していますか。
My name is Nishimura of Radio France. You mentioned that you don't have any direct communication with the government or LDP. How do you analyze this?
はい。この私の ある種その、命をかけたこの訴えに対して、自民党だとか、あるいはその公明党だとか、日本政府、国会の中での与党から、あまり反応がない、というのは、大変残念なように思います。おそらく50年前のその沖縄が復帰する以前は、もっともっと多くの日本の方たち、あるいは日本政府の与党、当時は自民党だけですけれども、が反応してくださったと思ってます。なので、自民党も変わってしまったなということを、一つ思わざるを得ない状況にあります。また、公明党についても、沖縄の復帰前はですね、基地の返還リスト、米軍基地の返還リストというものを作って、どこの基地を米軍がどういうふうに使っているかと、で、ここだったら返還できるんじゃないかということを自民党に提言していました。1968年と9年ぐらいの頃だと記憶してますけれども、つまり沖縄の基地をもっと減らしていこうと、平和の党と歌ってるわけですけど、その平和を沖縄でも実現していこうというふうに、復帰前は頑張っていた公明党が、今はこの辺の新基地建設を推し進める側に回っているという点で、公明党も変わってしまったなということを思っています。それはものすごく残念に思ってますし、せめて現場に足を運んで、私から直接話を聞くということだけでもやっていただきたいなというふうに思いますし、本当にこの心ある政治家の方たち、もちろんいらっしゃると思いますので、ぜひ足を運んで、一緒にお話ができればというふうに思っています。
And so within the appeal, the hunger strike, which I'm carrying out at the moment, is in a way, of course, putting my life on the line for this as well. And the fact that there is no response at all from the LDP, the Komeito, from the ruling parties within the Japanese government is something which is extremely unfortunate. I think that if this had been happening 50 years ago, prior to the reversion, it would have been a very different situation. There would have been a much stronger response from Japanese people and the Japanese government, which was, of course, it was under the LDP, the ruling party at the time. So when I think about this, I think that unfortunately we really see that the LDP has changed in this period as well. In regards to Komeito as well, prior to the reversion, they, for example, created a list of the bases which could potentially be returned to Japan, analyzing how the U.S. military was using each of the bases, and made a proposal to the LDP actually of which bases could potentially be returned. I think this was around 1968 or 69. This was at the time when Komeito was very active prior to reversion about how to have a returning of the US-based land to Okinawa and realize the peace island which Okinawa is being promoted as well. However, now Komeito is on the side of promoting the new construction of the military base as well. So I think it unfortunately must be said that Komeito has changed in this negative way as well. At the very least, I would hope that they would at least come and listen to me directly. And I believe that there are, of course, sincere politicians who are concerned about these issues. So I would really like to invite them and hope that they could at least come and have a dialogue, a discussion on these issues.
All right, thank you very much for coming. I think this wraps up our event today. We appreciate your coming and attending the event, and please give a big hand to our guest, Motoyama-san, for his insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice evening.